Okay, good morning everybody. Happy Monday. Woohoo! All right, so a couple of things we have to talk about today. This is a super important lesson. You're going to need to know this all the way through all the rest of your math classes is the quadratic formula. In fact, I'll even bet your parents have heard of it, the quadratic formula, because it's that important, but nobody remembers it except for me. So let's go ahead and talk about it. 11/9/2020. Okay, objective today is solving quadratics or x squared equations. They're called quadratics by the quadratic formula. Okay, I'll let you catch up. Sorry, I'm so sloppy. Okay, so if you get something like this, okay, it won't factor. Completing this course is kind of a pain because you've got an odd number here, but you have to solve it. And you don't have a calculator because they won't let you use a calculator in college. So how do you solve this? It won't factor. Completing the square is kind of a pain because of all the odd numbers. How do you do it? Well, you're going to use a thing called the quadratic formula. Here it is. Negative b, write this down, plus or minus, because there's always two answers. Square root, big square root, big square root, because inside we're going to put a b squared minus a 4ac, that's 4 times a times c. 4 is in the formula, it's part of the formula, all over 2a. All right, that's the quadratic formula. Well, it comes from our quadratic y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. It comes from standard form, okay? So the number in front of x squared is a, so this number would be a is 1. The number in front of x is b, so in this example our b is 3. And the constant, the number all by itself, is c, so c is negative 5. Okay, all right, great. What's the discriminant? So the discriminant is this part of it. Discriminant is this part of the formula. It's just this little part of the formula right here, okay? That's the discriminant. It is the b squared minus 4ac. And the only reason we like to talk about the discriminant, the only reason it's important is because it will tell us whether or not there is no solution. Or if there are two solutions. Okay? If this is ever negative, then you have negative on the inside of a square root, no solution. If this is positive, then you get a plus or minus, you get two solutions. If this turns out to be 0 though, there'll be one solution, but the one solution happens twice, okay? That's why we talk about the discriminant, okay? Because if we know this is going to be a negative, then there's no solution, okay? All right, example 1, let's do it. There's my formula. So solve this by the quadratic formula. This is not hard. In fact, I've had several students in the past that hate factoring, and then they learn this, and they're like, I like this, because all it is just plug and chug. What does plug and chug mean? Put the numbers in. Okay, so here we go. Here's my formula. A is going to be 1, because it's the number in front of x squared. B is 3. C is negative 5. Okay, so we're going to find the answer, find the values of x, two answers using the quadratic formula. Okay, so here we go. We're going to use our formula. Negative b. So we're going to go negative 3 plus or minus big square root b squared, so I'm going to go 3 squared minus 4 times a, and a is 1, times c, which is a negative 5, all over 2a, which is 2 times my 1. Now, all I did is I plugged these numbers into the formula. A goes in there, my b goes there, and my c goes there. So what I'm going to do now, I plugged in the formula and just simplify it, and that's just numbers. Okay, so I'm going to have a negative 3 plus or minus because there's two answers, square root of 9 plus, I'm going to get a plus because negative times negative, plus 20 all over 2 because 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, let me keep going with this. So I've got a negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 29 over 2. So the answers, because there are two answers, there's two answers, the answers are this. My answers are negative 3 plus the square root of 29 over 2, and my other answer is a negative 3 minus the square root of 29 over 2. Okay, let me highlight those. Those are my two answers. So if I want to solve for x, those are my two answers. Now, those are kind of ugly answers. Let's say somebody actually wanted an answer like a decimal, so you could use this. You could just use a calculator. If you wanted to know the actual decimal answer for this, you could just use a calculator. If I used a calculator, I would just take, let me make this a little bit brighter here. Okay, so I'm just going to take, if I wanted to use my calculator, go negative 3 plus the square root of 29, and I'm going to divide that by 2, or as a decimal answer would be about a 1.2, or x is approximately equal to a 1.2, and then the other would be a negative 3, subtract square root of 29, and divide that by 2, and I get an answer of about negative 4.2. X is approximately equal to a negative 4.2. Okay, so I can either have the root answer in rational root form, or I can have it as a decimal. Okay, that's the quadratic formula. So let's go ahead and turn the page. Okay, example 2. Find the zeros of this parabola using the quadratic formula. Okay, so now, here we go. If I'm going to use the quadratic formula, I want to find the zeros. We set it equal to 0 because I want to find the 0. I'm going to solve for x. So let me write the quadratic formula down. Okay, negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so we're going to use that. So right off the bat, that's my quadratic formula. Let's list out what a is. A is a negative 1, because I got a negative right there, a negative 1. B is a negative 3, and C is a positive 10. So we're going to just take the numbers and plug them into the formula, okay? Put our 10 there, we'll put our negative 3 there and there, and we'll put our negative 1 there and there. Okay, so just plug the numbers in. So let's see. Here we go. Negative b. So I'm going to have a negative, negative 3. Double negative. That's okay. I can fix that. Negative, negative 3 plus or minus square root of negative 3 squared. Negative times negative is positive. Minus, that's in my formula, subtract 4. That's in my formula, times a, which is a negative 1, times c, which is a 10, all over 2 times a, which is a negative 1. Okay? Just plug the numbers into the formula. That's all I did. Okay, so now let's simplify this. I've got a double negative right here. All right, so I'm going to take care of that, and I'll have a double negative here. I'll take care of that. So I'll have a positive 3 plus or minus, because there's two answers, big square root. Let's see. Negative 3 squared is a positive 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. And a minus times a minus. See, this is negative 4 times negative 1 is going to be a positive 40 all over negative 2. Okay? All right, so far so good. I've got a 3 plus or minus the square root of a 49 all over negative 2. Hey, now I like it when I get a perfect square. Check that out. When I get a perfect square, then I can get a nice number. So let's see. I know what the square root of 49 is at 7, so I'm going to have a 3 plus or minus the square root up. Doggone me. Mistake number 1 for the day. It's not the square root. It's just 7. Come on, Bill. How about just 7? 3 plus or minus 7 all over negative 2. Okay, now there are two answers. There really are. So I took the square root of 49. I wrote down 7. And now, what am I going to do with that? Well, there are two answers. So I'm going to have a 3 plus 7 over negative 2 because of the plus and minus. And I'm going to 3 subtract 7 over negative 2. Okay. I'm going to get 10 over negative 2, which is negative 5. So one of my answers is negative 5. Get a -4 over -2, which is a +2. There are my zeros right there. Okay, so your homework is out of your journal, and then we're going to take a test on this on Thursday. Test Thursday. There, that's all I got.